Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Grizzlies win edition. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies got their 25th win of the season. They came from behind to defeat the Detroit Pistons on the road. They were carried by Jaren Jackson Jr., who had a massive 21-point third quarter and finished with 40 points. On today's episode, I'm going to talk about that victory. Before I do, just a reminder, if you want to support this program, do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. I just posted a bonus episode answering listener questions over at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. You can join the listener Slack. You can join the Grits and Grinds Slack. Do it all. Patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right. This game did not start off like it was going to be a Grizzlies win. It was, in fact, more of the same. It was a carryover from previous games where the Grizzlies looked kind of terrible. I watched the first half with my kids. I mean, they were in and out watching the game, but we have family that lives in Detroit. They're basically aware that the Detroit Pistons set an NBA record for losing this year. So in their minds, and they're 6-9, in their minds, the Pistons are terrible and they're worse than the Grizzlies. And I was trying to explain to them, actually, I think the Grizzlies are going to lose this game because we have all these guys who are out hurt and a lot of the Pistons players are actually available. And also we don't really want to win. So then you have to try to explain to your kids the whole tanking thing. It's hard to explain to your kids why losing is good, but I was like, I don't think we're actually going to win this game, and it looked like I was right. The first half, the Grizzlies struggled to score. They were launching three-pointers nonstop in that sort of aimless basketball direction in my mind. I'm not saying the three-pointers were aimless, although they might as well have been. They were 6 for 22 on three-pointers, and we've seen this over and over this year where the team's just launching three-pointers. They're not attacking in the paint. They're seemingly settling for these shots. And, of course, it's always bad shooters, or it's usually bad shooters shooting. So they were 6 for 22 on three-pointers in the first half. They were only 10 for 23 on two-pointers. But, again, basically the same number of threes and twos attempted. This has not been a winning formula at all this season. You know why? Because the Grizzlies are bad at shooting three-pointers. They've basically been last in the NBA in three-point percentage the entire year. So at halftime, you've scored 44 points, which is terrible, but it's right in line with the previous blowout loss to the Magic, where you scored 88 points. So you had 44 points at halftime, and you trail the Pistons by 13, 57-44. But in the second half, all of a sudden, a switch was flipped. I mean, it wasn't a direct like night and day difference, but at the very least, it wasn't the Magic game. The Magic game, you go in at halftime, you're struggling to score, and then you come out in the third quarter and the Magic go on a 21-3 run to make it especially humiliating. But no, the Grizzlies started scoring and they started attacking in the paint. And Jaren Jackson Jr. said, hey, you know what? I can score on James Wiseman and Chimezie Metu pretty easily. I mean, it certainly helped that Jalen Duren left this game. He lost a tooth 5 minutes into the game, did not return. So in the third quarter, Jaren keeps going right at James Wiseman. He gets a friendly whistle. I don't mind admitting it. Monty Williams basically said so after the game. He said, one, we did a bad job of guarding Jaren. We probably could have sent more help. Also, he was getting some calls, and good job by Jaren recognizing how the game was being officiated, and he kept attacking. So in the third quarter, Jaren scores 21 points. This was just the 10th time in franchise history a player's had 21 or more in a quarter. This was the second time Jaren's done it. He had a 26-point quarter. You remember against the Bucks several years ago. The other players to have 21 or more in a quarter in franchise history, Ja Morant's done it 3 times. Dylan Brooks has done it. Marc Gasol and Troy Daniels, Mike Miller, and Sharif Abdul-Rahim. They're the other guys to do it. But Jaren keeps attacking in the paint. He gets to the foul line 10 times just in the third quarter. And as a team, the Grizzlies score 41 points. So in the first half, they scored 44 points and took 22 threes. In the third quarter, they scored 41 points. They only took 4 threes. I mean, I think when you look at the first half and the second half, there's a stark difference between the shot selection. First half, 44 points, 22 three-pointers attempted. Second half, 66 points, 11 three-pointers attempted. You took way fewer threes and you scored way more points. I actually think there's a correlation. I've kind of been talking about it a lot this year. You need to attack. You need to get in the paint. You need to shoot closer shots. When you shoot three-pointers, they should be usually coming off of play on the inside. You want to go inside out a lot. I know they have that let that mother fly as the philosophy, but too often we're seeing guys shooting pull-up three-pointers and they don't rebound. They do a terrible job of offensive rebounding, and you end up with these horrible three-point shooting performances. Now, in this game, one of the reasons the Grizzlies won, besides attacking in the paint, is they actually offensive rebounded really, really well. Like Jordan Goodwin had a huge rebounding game, got a career-high 13 rebounds. More on Jordan Goodwin in a bit. But the way they attacked in the second half, I think directly led to the victory. I mean, just look at the points. They scored 50% more points. So they went from 44 points in the first half to 66 in the second half. And they took 50% fewer three-pointers, went from 22 to 11. I think I'm doing the math right there. Apologies if those numbers are off. But I thought the Grizzlies did a really good job of attacking. Specifically, Jaren did a great job of attacking. Jaren finished this game with 40 points. This is the third 40-point game of Jaren's career. He also got 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. He ended up with the career-high 12 free throws made. That is on 14 attempts. He did also miss a layup with about 12 seconds left to make this a very exciting end of the game, but the Grizzlies got the defensive stop on the other end and get the victory. By the way, the 27-point second half for Jaren, that's the second highest scoring half of his career. Of course, the franchise record for most points in a half, it's 35, and it belongs to Kenneth Lofton Jr. Another neat thing about this Jaren game is the way it was a bounce-back performance. Reminder, against the Magic, Jaren had his fewest points in a game since the 2019-2020 season, and he had his worst plus-minus he's had in any game since that same season. He was 1 for 9 against Orlando for 4 points and was a minus 34. What a response with a 40-point performance. And also he was making defensive plays, just an all-around really, really good game. Going to those 3-point numbers, by the way, this is something, again, we've been tracking it all year, and I don't think the correlation is direct as far as the number of three-pointers attempted and your wins. But just digest this number, make of it what you will. This year, when the Grizzlies take 35 three-pointers or more, that's most of their games, they're 14-40. If they take fewer than 35 threes, they're 11-10. So a winning record if they take fewer than 35 three-pointers. I mean, maybe messing with those numbers is when you're losing, you feel more pressured and you think you have to get back in it quickly and take more threes. I think very probably good teams are way better at guarding the paint and taking away those easier baskets and forcing you into maybe three-pointers you don't want to take. But this year, when the Grizzlies shoot fewer threes, they are way better. And by the way, in this game, the Grizzlies set a new franchise record by making their 1,000th three-pointer of the season. They've never done that before. I would be more excited about that 1,000 three-pointers made number if they weren't last in the NBA in three-point percentage. It's not a confusing formula in my brain. You're last at three-point percentage. Why do you shoot so many of them? By the way, the player who made the 1,000th three-pointer of the season, that's right, Brandon Clarke. Brandon Clarke makes this three-pointer in the fourth quarter to give the Grizzlies the lead. Who would have had Brandon Clarke as the guy to make that shot? Brandon Clarke matched his three-point output from last season with one. He's made exactly 2 three-pointers in basically the last 2.5 years. By the way, let's talk a little bit more about this third quarter. It was very exciting, and that's even outside of Jaren's scoring. You had, like, Santi Aldama had a quiet game, but in the third quarter, he was contesting a lot of shots. Santi finishes with 3 points. He gets 3 blocks. His only bucket, it was off a Scottie Pippen Jr. alley-oop. Scottie Pippen Jr. had a quiet game overall. He did not score, and this is after he'd scored in double figures in the last 4 games. Pippen came into this game averaging 13 points per game over his previous 10. He goes scoreless, but in that third quarter, made a lot of important plays. He got some steals, finished the game with 3 steals. He got 3 assists. He had a nice drop-off pass to Jaren Jackson for a driving layup. Jaren Jackson, I think you could say he had a quiet game. He didn't even play that much in the second half relative to how much he has been playing. But in that third quarter, he made a couple of tough buckets. He had an impressive block. He did snap his streak at 8 games of making 2 or more threes, but I don't think it was a lost night or even a bad night for Jaren Jackson. On the other hand, I think he did a really good job of not forcing things, of playing within the offense. The ball wasn't coming his way, but Gigi got 4 assists. He helped on defense. He helped off a little bit on that final Cade Cunningham attempt to tie the game. He, in the second half, only took 4 field goal attempts, but guess what? He made 3 of them, plus picked up 2 assists in that second half. So I feel like Jaren Jackson, a very nice game. Also in that third quarter, you had Jake LaRavia making the buzzer beater to cut it to a 5-point game. LaRavia, who struggles to shoot basically in every game, except for that one time he went 7 for 9 for 3 against the Lakers. But LaRavia makes a very important long three-pointer at the buzzer, cuts it from an 8-point game to a 5-point game, and that sets up a fourth quarter where the Grizzlies were able to get the win. Another part about this win, you had seemingly a switch flip for the team. Like I said at halftime, it wasn't a total like night and day, like, oh, we're playing way much better now. I mean, one, we were attacking in the paint. We stopped just shooting nonstop three-pointers. But it still wasn't like, oh, we got this. Look how hard they're playing. However, in the fourth quarter, I did feel like the switch was flipped. And this is when this play happened where Jared Rhoden for the Pistons trash talks Luke Kennard. Now, I'm aware of Jared Rhoden, but I don't know much about him. And also, I don't think about his name that much. So when Pete Pranica said something about Rhoden, I was like, wait, are they talking about Tony Rhoden? Grizzlies legend, Tony Rhoden? But no, they're talking about Jaren Rhoden. But Jaren Rhoden blocks Luke Kennard's shot, says something to him. Luke Kennard was kind of like, what are you even doing? The team got a little bit mad, and it felt like that was the spark they needed. At that point, the Grizzlies are trailing by 5. But right after that block shot, they had a baseline out of bounds play, ended up getting a dunk for Lamar Stevens. He got moving towards the basket, had a nice dunk. Then I believe Evan Fournier scored, but Luke Kennard comes down, drills a 3 in Rhoden's face, and talks to him about it. That was Luke's 5th three-pointer of the game. Luke had a big night. He finished, by the way, with 19 points and 8 assists playing his former team, the Pistons. So Luke hits this big 3, cuts it to 2. At that point, by the way, Rhoden was subbed out, but the fire was lit. The damage hadn't been done. So then we get a Lamar Stevens steal, and that sets up the Brandon Clarke made 3 to take the lead. Then Brandon Clarke comes down, blocks a shot. Unfortunately, he missed the layup that would have capped off the fantastic sequence, but the team kept scrapping. Jordan Goodwin was just keeping plays alive nonstop. You had Luke Kennard come down. He hits that jumper on like a crossover step back move against Cade Cunningham, puts the team up 5. Then BC does complete an amazing sequence where he blocks a shot on defense, comes down, makes a quick floater. That put the Grizzlies up 7. That was their biggest lead of the game at that point. They're up by 8 after a Lamar Stevens dunk, where there was some particularly horrible defense by Evan Fournier. They're up 8. Unfortunately, the Grizzlies blow this lead. The Pistons start making some three-pointers, and eventually you're tied at 106. But when you're tied, they go back to the well of Jaren attacking in the paint. He gets to the line, scores both of his free throws, and then a great sequence from Jaren where he blocks Cade Cunningham, then makes a really tough lefty drive on Metu to put the Grizzlies up 4. It would have been an easier win if Jaren hadn't then blown, of course, that layup with 12 seconds left to make the exciting finish. But otherwise, a really strong fourth quarter, and I just like seeing the team have life. And also, I love watching Brandon Clarke play basketball. And I know everyone who's been closely watching the lottery odds may be slightly disappointed about this win. I mean, basically, you tip your cap to Toronto. Toronto, no one thought you could be this horrible, but you did it. And now the Grizzlies have 2 more wins than the Raptors. So as I've basically advised the whole year, don't worry about the standings. Just enjoy the wins now. We're not going to catch the Nets or the Jazz in the other direction. And also, we're probably not going to lose enough to catch the Raptors. So the final 7 games, enjoy the wins. And I enjoyed this one. I enjoyed them closing the game with Brandon Clarke and Jaren Jackson Jr. playing together. I mean, Brandon Clarke, all right, we thought maybe they're going to bring him along slowly, take it easy on minutes. He's playing his regular allotment of minutes, and also he played something like 13 of the final 16 minutes of this game. I thought when he subbed out in the fourth quarter, all right, that's it for Brandon. No. Brandon came back in, and Brandon Clarke was absolutely huge. Of course, Jaren is going to take all of the headlines with the 40-point game with 3 steals and 2 blocks, but Brandon Clarke off the bench, 15 points, 7 rebounds, 2 blocks, and a steal, and of course, 1 for 1 from the 3-point line. I mean, Brandon was tremendous. And here's the, I think, illuminating stat through Brandon Clarke's 3 games. This is from Patreon supporter Major Rich. He dropped this bit of knowledge in the Grits and Grinds Slack channel. In the 3 games that Brandon Clarke has been back, he is a plus 19 in raw plus minus. Meanwhile, when he's on the bench, the team is minus 59. You know I love that kind of propaganda. Slightly misleading, but who cares? Brandon Clarke has looked great, and it is awesome to see him back. And this is why he came back, to get these wins, to get this experience that he can build on going into next year. Also, I still maintain, and people disagree, I maintain games like this are important for GG Jackson's development. This game, where the Grizzlies got their 10th victory of the season when trailing at halftime, I think this is important to GG Jackson's development. This is way more important to me, in my opinion, than a game where he shoots the ball 25 times. Being on the court for the second half, only taking 4 shots in that time, and most of them being layups, and also then being on the court for the final possessions when it was crunch time, learning to play with Jaren, with Luke, with an aggressive Luke, a strangely aggressive Luke, like him fitting in and playing in games where you're trying to win, I think that's important for his development. But I certainly enjoyed the win. Let's look at some other stats. Oh, Jordan Goodwin. So as I said, Jordan Goodwin had a career high with those 13 rebounds. This is a game after he had the double-double against the Magic with 16 points and 11 rebounds. But Jordan Goodwin, the way he really, I thought, made his presence felt was on the offensive glass. He got 4 offensive rebounds in just the second half. So like Jordan Goodwin was always involved in these plays, even the out-of-bounds play where the Grizzlies challenged it and had the call overturned in the final minute. That was Jordan Goodwin getting involved and making some plays. And because of Jordan Goodwin's hustle, the Grizzlies were able to win the second chance scoring battle, and they finished with 10 offensive rebounds in just the second half. And oh, by the way, with those 13 rebounds. Goodwin had 5 assists and 4 points. Remember, when reading Jordan Goodwin's stats, always do the points last. LaRavia finished the game with 12 points. He had 4 rebounds and 2 assists. By the way, this game was the Grizzlies' 17th road win of the season, which is more road wins than they had last season. So this season, when the Grizzlies are 25-50, they got more road wins than last season when they were the 2 seed in the West and were 51-31. I cannot explain it. Will they get road win number 18 on Wednesday night against the Bucks? I'm not going to put it past them. I mean, maybe Desmond Bane will play. Maybe Vince Williams Jr. will play, although it kind of feels like maybe he's done for the year. Will they all suit up on Saturday night for the game against the Sixers on the Marc Gasol retirement ceremony night? I have no idea, but maybe. Will they do it on Friday night with the rematch, the third matchup of the year against the Pistons? Who knows? Anyways, going forward, like I said, Bucks tonight, then Pistons Friday, then the Sixers on Saturday. I'm planning to be at that game on Saturday to see the Marc Gasol retirement ceremony. If you haven't watched the Marc Gasol documentary yet over at Grind City Media, you need to do so. And actually, you need to do so soon because I'm having the director of the documentary, Michael Blevins, on the show on Wednesday. So it will be, I'm going to say it's going to be a spoiler-filled one. I mean, there's not a ton of spoilers if you watch the Grizzlies, but there are some things in there I think you want to experience in the movie before you hear us talk about them. So go ahead and watch the documentary so you'll be all prepared for the interview with Michael Blevins. I mean, basically, let's call it book club. It's documentary club. It's movie club. Go watch the documentary before you listen to the episode of Grits and Grinds. That'll come out later this week with Mike Blevins. After the 76ers game, the final 4 games of the year, it is a home game against the Spurs. Maybe we get a little more Wemby action. And then road game with the Cavaliers, home game with the Lakers, home game with the Nuggets. There's a good chance the Lakers, Nuggets, and Cavs are all going to have things to play for. So those could easily be losses. Anyways, that's the episode for today. Again, if you want to support the show, do it at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel for Grits and Grinds. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel for Fast Break Breakfast. All right. Hope you guys have a great Tuesday. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.